In this video, I'm going to be talking about minis, miniatures, terrain, and particularly how miniatures can be tailored and made specific to an adventure, today on Flutes Loot. I have an article that accompanies this video, so if you want to read it instead and check out all the info there, feel free. Link in the description. This video is sponsored by the Mammoth Chronicles Kickstarter. This campaign has 8 fantastic 5e adventures that come with 131 premium STLs, a year's worth of high-quality, play-tested 5e content at your fingertips. Expertly written, plug-and-play, short arc adventures with legendary themes such as a radiant dragon empire, abomination werewolves, infernal blacksmiths, eldritch planeshifters, and more. And the best part is whatever your platform is, whether you use physical books, PDFs, VTT tokens, Roll20, 3D printing, or even paper minis, they got you covered. Go check their campaign today. So some quick things I want to talk about with minis is, do minis make combat more exciting? They certainly can. They're not necessary, and a lot of people prefer to play Theater of the Mind, or they use Theater of the Mind selectively. What I mean by that is there are some combat encounters that are impromptu, or are less dangerous, or they're going to be less taxing on tactics and measuring things and relativity. So Theater of the Mind is often a great way to play the game and not slow it down with trying to get things set up and pull out a bunch of things to try to represent what's going on just to have 2 turns of combat and then it's over. Miniatures are a lot of fun for so many people. I've talked to some people who've said they've had cognitive injuries that now makes it so their ability to visualize what's being talked about is just really difficult or even impossible for them. Those sorts of players, I would say, need to have some kind of visual representation of what's going on if you want them to be engaged. Are minis worth it in D&D? Countless people love to collect minis, paint them, and use them in their adventures. Some of them get minis just because it's fun and not because they plan on using them in an adventure, but one day they hope to. I personally think it's an easier sell if I'm about to run an adventure and there are minis that are tailored to that adventure, which is why I like Mammoth Factory games. Miniatures also span different hobbies that aren't just D&D and TTRPGs. Warhammer 40k is famous for having miniatures for their wargame. Countless YouTube channels are devoted to just miniatures that are agnostic to any sort of system or reason to having those miniatures. Those channels often get around quite a bit in what kind of systems they are making miniatures for, and I think it's very impressive. It's like a subculture or a sub-hobby within a hobby. Sometimes you can get in trouble with having not enough space to store all of your miniatures, and having the crafting space and the paint and everything can be cumbersome, but to those who have the drive and the space to kind of fill out that hobby, it's absolutely fulfilling for so many people. If you are going to use miniatures and terrain, I definitely recommend preparing those ahead of time so that you can kind of put them in another room so that you can quickly bring them in to be used with whatever you're running, so that you don't slow things down with you just kind of fumbling around trying to get everything set up, and then people just say, oh, we don't have to do miniatures if you don't want to, because they just want to get on with it. I've been both people in that scenario before. I've also been intrigued by 3D printing over the years, which Mammoth Factory Games does, and I learned that this is a classification of an STL miniature. STL is a file type that's used for 3D printing. I've had friends that are big into 3D printing that have made me little treasure chests for being the DM as like a gift. Another friend was talking to me about 3D printing these specialty Pokeballs that are like actually look like certain Pokemon, and they look really fun. I leaned on some of those friends who do 3D printing to help me with this because I didn't know a lot about it. A few considerations with STL miniatures is that the more premium and detailed the miniature is that you're printing, and the more you don't want to lose that quality, you have to have a nozzle that is more detailed, let's say more pointy, like pens that are bulk that are just used for taking notes versus, artist pens. You also need to consider the kind of material you're printing with. There's like premium versus cheaper materials. And there's the time that it takes to print. Some of them can take several hours that I've seen. Maybe they've gotten faster over the years, but it's still a time commitment. But you can save a lot of money doing 3D printing as long as you do a lot of it, because you have to put in the 3D printing work to get a 3D printer, learn how it works, get materials, purchase the designs, the STL files, and everything. So if you're going to do a lot of miniatures, 3D printing could be a lot of fun for you. And you'll typically still need to paint them, so both store-bought and STL 3D printed will require painting typically, or they're more expensive if they come pre-painted. There are some cheaper miniatures that are kind of like mass-produced that come with colors, and those can be fine, but if you're looking for a more premium experience, you're probably going to end up painting it yourself, or you've got a lot of money. One other benefit to 3D printing is you can print the same design that you purchased once and just print it over and over again. If you're playing online, there's also tokens you can use. Mammoth Factory Games, for example, also makes VTT tokens, virtual tabletop tokens, that you can use online. They also make paper miniatures so that if you want just a cheap way to use their adventures, you can print them out and then maybe you tape like a penny or some other coin to the bottom of them so they stand up. Really simple. Let's talk about why I like this Kickstarter, the Mammoth Chronicles. Mammoth Factory Games over the years has made several adventures that they've been playtesting for a long time and refining. They're constantly trying to make them better so that people enjoy the adventures along with the tailored figurines. Now I'm going to review 2 of these adventures that were provided to me to see how well they put together these adventures that go with their miniatures. If you want to know more about the premium STL figures, you can go over to Fry Minis, where they're going to be covering this same Kickstarter, and they are specialists in minis. I think they were even going to paint them. I personally didn't ask for any minis because I'm not really a mini guy and I didn't want them to have to pay to ship them out to me. So I just opted to get some of these PDFs. No matter what your style is, they've got something for you in this Kickstarter. So let's see if these PDFs fit my style. Stranded upon the mist-shrouded Isles of Thess, the characters find themselves embroiled in a centuries-old conspiracy that threatens to consume every living soul upon the islands. They must unravel the secrets of the isles and face the shadows that lurk in the mists if they are to defeat the Blood Lords of the Deep. This is an aquatic vampire adventure that I love the premise of. I like that they're taking vampires out into the seas instead of just into the castles like we're used to with Curse of Strahd. Part 1 is the voyage, so there's combat and seafaring. Part 2 is Into the Mist, combat, exploration, mystery. And Part 3 is the Elder One, boss battle and exploration. The hook is the characters have been contacted by a noted ship captain by the name of Errol Atherson. The captain hails from the legendary Isles of Thess and has been plagued by surreal nightmares as of late, and they make him fear for the fate of his family and their home. He's willing to pay the characters to travel on his ship to the misted isles and ensure that his kin are in good health. Hideous dreams start to afflict spellcasters and characters with key points specifically. As they progress, they'll get to learn more about Errol's bloodline and his lineage. They'll learn more about the islands and be able to navigate them. They'll even get to explore a village called Saltvine. I like some of the world building that they establish and that the information is pretty easy to go through. It talks about how the players might interact with people in the town, what kind of DCs they need to kind of gain favor of the people to get them to open up to them more, recent events that have them in mourning, and a little bit of a history about a deity that they worship in this area and why there's so much fog. They've got some maps here that are just as good as anything I've seen in a Wizards of the Coast product. And there's some intrigue with the vampires that the characters will slowly start to uncover, and the vampires will actually manipulate some of the villagers as minions to attack the players. So there's shipwrecks and all kinds of places to explore. I like these different maps of different terrains and interesting locations. So overall, I'm very impressed. They did some good collaborations to get some maps for this. It's probably better to think of it as a standalone adventure and not a one-shot. What I really like about this conclusion is that the decisions leading up to it directly affect this boss fight. Like, there are certain NPCs that if they die or their blood touches some of the water in a sacrifice kind of way, it can get much more difficult, including the Elder One being immune to weapons that are not magical and gaining like a +2 and immunity to certain spells and stuff. Honestly, very impressive. I'd like to see this more in boss fights and adventure modules that are published, where it's not just getting to the end, but how you get there that really matters. They also have this really streamlined timeline section so that if you didn't want to read through every single thing up above, you can kind of get a feel for how long each section of the standalone adventure is going to take and what's typically going on there where it's happening. It gives you a complete monster list of what to expect, what you're going to need to prepare. So their estimates for this is going to be almost a 15-hour adventure. So it's not a one-shot in the way that I define a one-shot. It's definitely a standalone adventure that can be inserted into a campaign, or you can totally gut it to make it a one-shot if you want. But it's a standalone with plenty of material and interesting concepts to go with premium STL miniatures that I'm really impressed with. By the way, if you do want to look at all their STLs, you can go to their Facebook. If I don't remember to put it in the video here, go to the article or ask me to link you to it. So yeah, I'm definitely planning to run this one myself. All right, this next one is the Sprawl, and I bet my wife Opal would really like this one because she's very druidic in real life and she likes plants. I also like this little frog miniature. As with the Blood Lords of the Deep, the Sprawl comes with 3 parts, like a 3-act play. The hook is that the characters have been contacted by Lady Sylvanathra and told to meet her at the camp, not far from the edge of the Sprawl. They have been told that their mission will take them deep into the forest and is a matter of emergency. So the Sprawl is a very thick forest, kind of like Mirkwood in like Lord of the Rings style. There's going to be plot points involving a spore cloud and a camp of people, medical emergencies, and a fungal network. Characters that attempt to study the infected humans may make a wisdom medicine check to do so. Consult the following table to determine the result of what they can learn. So I love these sorts of things where information, if you're going to use a skill check to gate the information, give us some tiers. If they get a 1 to 10, nothing. 11 to 15, 16 to 19, 20 plus, what are they learning? There's a mechanic here for holding your breath while you're in this spore cloud. And there's lots of these like zombies that are very spore ridden. Then you go on a journey and you get this map through the sprawl. Travel times are in between them instead of just roads. I really like that they included travel time between key locations. There's survival results, so if you like exploration and what happens during travel, there's some structure here for you. There's rules for resting of what's going to happen while you rest based on what you roll on your survival. There's things like predatory undergrowth, hypnotic toads, a thornling nest, and there's even an archdruid they can encounter. There's going to be lies and truths that they have to sift through, potential rescue missions, and it seems like this archdruid can be a very important NPC and ally for them. They're going to learn some of the motives behind some of the allies or non-allies, depending on their decisions, that they've met so far at getting into the sprawl and why they are here, what's going on. They're going to end up in a grove where they can meet a shroom lord. So they're going to meet a lot of these mushroom people. And just like the previous adventure, again, their decisions matter. The allies they keep, the people who die, or how they treat different NPCs or creatures are going to feed into what happens in Act 3. There's even a race against time sort of scenario where they could be rescuing someone, and it does point out, like, if the players are clever and they find a way to fly there and avoid a lot of the commotion and the terrain, then maybe the person they're trying to save has more hit points left. Those kind of suggestions are really helpful to DMs, and they also paint a picture for what's happening. There's also a mountainside skill challenge, and I really like this table that they made. I've never seen this done before, but it really spells out what's happening based on certain failures in the different scenarios that they're going up against. And this will affect the state of the NPC they could try to save, whether they're at full health or dead, based on the skill challenge. This is how a skill challenge should feel to me. I really like this. Fantastic. And then they even have ideas for further adventures. So if your players enjoyed this setting, here's some ideas for what else can happen. And then again, they give a really easy DM reference for what this is going to look like, the way that things could potentially go. This would have been really useful in Curse of Strahd, by the way. And again, timelines for how many hours you can expect to spend in each part of the adventure. This seems to be more of a proper one-shot style, but you're still looking at 5 to 7 hours probably to run this one, based on their estimates. Notice there's several different endings you can reach and this timeline here. Lots of magic items that the players can get, plenty of NPCs to interact with cards, monster stat blocks for the new monsters. I'm really impressed, and again, the artwork just makes me want to run this so much. It gets me excited that the detail and thought has been put into this, and they really want to have the adventure match the quality of the artwork, the miniatures that they've created for it. So that's the Mammoth Chronicles Kickstarter by Mammoth Factory Games. Again, I'm very impressed, and even as a non-miniature person who normally would think, oh, this isn't a Kickstarter for me, I find that there's a lot in it that's really cool, and it really opened my mind up to new ways I could play. I'm actually thinking about trying 3D printing now, if I can find the time and the space to do it. But regardless, I like these adventures, and getting those 8 adventures in one book. If you like it, you can plop it into your game, or use it to expand a whole campaign. I love that kind of stuff. Check out the Mammoth Chronicles Kickstarter. There's a 48-hour early bird special. I'm not sure the nature of it, but go check it out. We'll see what it is today. Let me know if you check them out, and I'll see you in the next video.